What do we got? Israel and Hamas ceasefire deal. Israel and Hamas agree to a ceasefire deal, including hostage release, Biden says. A hostage and ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel was reached Wednesday, following more than 15 months of extraordinary bloodshed and violence in Gaza. President Joe Biden said Wednesday. Implementation of the agreement is set to start Sunday, according to Qatar's prime minister. The agreement, which requires ratification by a vote of Israel's cabinet, follows an intense period of meetings and calls over the past several days, including by Biden to the leaders of Israel and mediating partners Qatar and Egypt. Steve Witkoff, President-elect Donald Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, has also played an instrumental role, meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the weekend to express Trump's interest in attaining a deal before his inauguration on Monday. Right, is that it? Here's what to know. Okay, let's read. This article seems to be more substantive. Is it substantive or substantive? I've gone back and forth on this word. Hold on.
Substantive.
It is substantive.
Substantive.
Okay. Israel and Hamas reach a Gaza ceasefire agreement. Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement on a multi-phase ceasefire that commits them to end the war in Gaza. President Biden and Qatar's prime minister announced separately on Wednesday. This deal will halt fighting in Gaza, surge much-needed humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians, and reunite the hostages with their families after more than 15 months in captivity, Biden said. He said that it was the same as a proposal he made in May of 2024, which was endorsed by the United Nations Security Council. Neither Israel nor Hamas immediately confirmed the deal, but officials close to the negotiations told NPR that both sides have reached a tentative ceasefire intended to end more than 15 months of the heaviest fighting ever between the two sides. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that there remained several unresolved points, but hoped the details would be finalized tonight. When was this published? This is today. The deal comes after weeks of intensive rounds of indirect negotiations in the Qatari capital, Doha, between Israel and Hamas, mediated by facilitators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar. In an unusual twist, envoys from both President Biden's administration and President-elect Donald Trump's team were also there, pressuring the sides to close a deal. The ceasefire is due to start on Sunday, according to Qatar's Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani. Jesus Christ, bro, chill. Several technical details about the agreement remain unclear, and it will require formal ratification by Israel's cabinet before it can take effect. Israel's President Isaac Herzog called on the cabinet and government of Israel to accept and approve it when presented, saying, "At great cost in blood, through enormous security, diplomatic, and societal efforts, we have created a moment of opportunity. We must seize it." Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Saar, said he was cutting short a trip to Europe to return to Israel for a government meeting on the ceasefire, expected to take place Thursday. The country's culture and sports minister, Miki Zohar, said in a statement he would vote on the agreement Thursday with his cabinet colleagues. It is the duty of every government minister to vote in favor of the deal, Zohar said. Earlier on Wednesday, Hamas had issued a statement that described a meeting between one of its senior leaders, Mohammed Darwish, and Ziad al-Nakhala, the head of another armed faction that operates inside Gaza, the Islamic Jihad group. The statement said the two men's discussion had involved stressing the exertion of all efforts to make this round of negotiations a success. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed news of the agreement, saying, "Our priority must be to ease the tremendous suffering caused by this conflict. I call on all parties to facilitate the rapid, unhindered, and safe humanitarian relief for all civilians in need." A deal in 3 phases. Many obstacles remain, though, with fighting still ongoing. Palestinian officials reported Israeli attacks killed more than 50 people on Wednesday, but if all goes as planned, the deal is expected to take effect within days and play out in 3 phases over an extended period. In the first phase, lasting 6 weeks, Hamas promises to release 33 Israeli hostages in exchange for a far greater number of Palestinian detainees. It's not clear how many are involved, since the group wants more detainees per each hostage freed alive, but has not said how many are still living. Most, but not all, are believed to be alive, according to Israeli officials. The total number of Palestinians released from Israeli custody is expected to be around 1,000, according to a Palestinian official who is not authorized to speak to the media. Ooh, I wonder if these are like prisoner of war type people, or if these are just Palestinian like prisoners, like just anybody who's in a jail in Israel. Oof. Israel will reduce but not end its military presence in Gaza during the first phase. Hamas will not release the final hostages, and Israel will not fully withdraw from Gaza until a later phase. The timeframe involved were not immediately clear. President-elect Trump commented on his social media platform there was a deal involving hostages. They will be released shortly, he wrote on his Truth Social network. Meanwhile, the spokesperson for Israeli President Isaac Herzog published a photograph on social media that showed Herzog meeting at his presidential residence in Jerusalem with the head of the International Committee, the Red Cross, Murana Spoljarek Egger, in which the spokesperson said was part of, in what the spokesperson said was part of preparations for the hostage deal. This would be the first formal ceasefire since a one-week truce in November of 2023, which included an exchange of about 100 Israeli hostages held in Gaza and about 240 Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli prisons. Subsequently, other hostages in Gaza were rescued or found dead. The war began on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas-led militants attacked southern Israel from Gaza, killing around 1,200 people, taking more than 250 hostages into Gaza. We, the families of 98 hostages, welcome with overwhelming joy and relief the agreement to bring our loved ones home. A statement by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum said, "We wish to express our profound gratitude to President-elect Trump, President Biden, both administrations, and the international mediators for making this possible. The war has killed more than 46,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza health authorities, who said the majority were women and children. The Israeli military says 405 soldiers have been killed in fighting since it invaded Gaza." On the Israeli side, I'm guessing. On the Israeli side? That's a lot more than I would have thought. Israel and Hamas have fought a number of wars since the Palestinian militant organization wrested control of the Gaza Strip from the Palestinian Authority in 2007. However, none of the previous conflicts have been nearly this long or this deadly. Why is a Trump guy allowed to be in these negotiations? I heard that Biden's guy invited him, but I think that, it would make sense if it's like a transition to a new administration that they would be somewhat informed on these. I would imagine you'd probably want them to be. Like in a well-functioning government, this is a good thing. Do you think that Trump's rhetoric did anything to accelerate the ceasefire? I think it's a coincidence, but Trump will take credit for it regardless, unfortunately. A ceasefire has to come eventually. I think I was asking a few months ago, when are they going to be done with this? Because I feel like what else is there left to do, right? I think Israel is made out really, really, really well from all this conflict. They got to fuck up Hezbollah. They got to fuck up the Houthis a little. No, not fuck up the Houthis, but at least defend from them and watch them get fucked up by the U.S. They got to fuck up Iran and defend from attacks from Iran. And they got to fuck up Hamas hardcore. So I feel like Israel basically got everything they wanted out of this. And a ceasefire is going to come at some point. So I think the interesting question is, what are the actual things that are ironed out in the peace deal? Isn't this like how Reagan got Iran to delay the hostage release? No, because I don't believe that was done under Jimmy Carter's presidency. That wasn't until Reagan took office. That was a different thing. Statement from President Joe Biden. Today, after many months of intensive diplomacy by the United States, along with Egypt and Qatar, Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire and hostage deal. The deal will halt the fighting in Gaza, surge much-needed humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians, and reunite the hostages with their families after more than 15 months in captivity. I laid out the precise contours of this plan on May 31st, 2024, after which it was endorsed unanimously by the UN Security Council. It is the result not only of the extreme pressure that Hamas has been under and the changed regional equation after a ceasefire in Lebanon and the weakening of Iran. Oh, nice. Good job. True. Yeah. But also of dogged and painstaking American diplomacy. My diplomacy never ceased in their efforts to get this done. Even as we welcome this news, we remember all the families whose loved ones were killed in Hamas's October 7th attacks and many blah, 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 blah. Okay. Are there any details on what the actual plan was or what it entails? Does this make Trump look good, Destiny? Whoops. Arab officials. Trump envoys swayed Netanyahu more in one meeting than Biden did all year. Tense Jerusalem sit-down led to breakthrough in talks, while Israel and Hamas agreeing in principle to hostage deal 2 days later. Sides now finalizing implementation details. I guess I don't know what this means more than Biden did all year. Israel was never, ever doing a ceasefire. When was the... what's the name of the city to the south of Khan Yunis? Oh my God, what am I thinking? Oh, I can just look, I guess. Oh, Rafah. When did Israel do the big Rafah invasion? Oh, this was in May. Okay. Before the invasion of Rafah, Israel was never settling on anything ever. I don't think. There's no way. So it was always going to last probably at least this long. Any predictions on how Anna and Cenk will respond to Biden helping Israel-Palestine ceasefires before his term ends? One of two ways. It's either going to be, look, Trump is actually a god. He is the president of peace. Or it'll be, why didn't Biden do this sooner? Why didn't he make peace 4 years ago? Why he should have solved it before it even happened? Is my guess. Or something about the donor class. During the meeting, Witkoff, so this is the Trump envoy, Witkoff urged Netanyahu to accept key compromises necessary for an agreement. The two Arab officials on Monday told the Times of Israel on condition of anonymity. Neither Witkoff nor Netanyahu's office responded to requests for comment. I wonder what the two key compromises on what? Oh, hold on. We got another thing. 1 second. Details of what's in the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. After months of negotiations between Hamas and Israel, with the United States, Egypt, and Qatar serving as Armenians. Okay. We have a deal that will take place in 3 different phases, each of which will last for 6 weeks, according to U.S. and Qatari officials. Phase 1 of the ceasefire has been finalized, according to Qatar's prime minister, while phase 2 and 3 are still in a draft phase and will be finalized after the first 6 weeks are complete. That's kind of spooky, but okay. Here are the full details of what's in phase 1 of the historic ceasefire deal. Phase 1, 42 days. Israeli forces will withdraw to the east away from densely populated areas, and more aid will be allowed into Gaza. Qatari officials announced coordination is currently underway to open the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing to allow the entry of international aid into Gaza, according to an Egyptian security source. Okay. Israeli forces will stay on the border, Qatar said. 33 hostages being held in Gaza will be released, starting with women, children, and the elderly, officials said. President Joe Biden said Americans will be part of the initial hostage release. 3 Americans are believed to be alive in Hamas custody, and 4 others are believed to be dead. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners being held by Israel will also be released in exchange for the hostages, Biden said. During phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all of the areas of Gaza, and the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin, and the innocent people can have greater access to these vital supplies. The Israeli cabinet will convene on Thursday to approve the deal. Phase 2, announcement of sustainable, calm, permanent cessation of military operations and all hostilities to be implemented before the exchange of remaining Israeli male hostages, civilians and soldiers, for an agreed upon number of prisoners in Israeli jails and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. We'll see. We'll see on that one. Okay. Permanent cessation of military operations and all hostilities. Can you explain why this is a victory for Israel? I think this is a victory for Hamas because this shows they can attack Israel and then return to normalcy without any real consequences. What do you mean without any real consequences? I think Hamas was fucking obliterated. What are you talking about? Israel has had an unbelievable string of wins over the past few months between Iran, Hezbollah, everything with Hamas, the Houthis getting bombed by the U.S., and then Assad getting kicked out of his country. I feel like Israel's just had so many unbelievably strong wins. And then they fucking got all the big Hamas leaders. They got, I forget his first name, Sinwar, who was the Hamas leader of, Yahya Sinwar, right? Who was the leader of the Gaza Strip, of Hamas. No. Yeah, he was the leader of the Gaza Strip when he got killed, right? And then they got Ismail Haniyeh, who was the chairman, the leader of all of Hamas. They killed this dude. And they got Mohammed Daif, who was the leader of the Al-Qassam Brigades, who's the military leader. These are the top 3 Hamas dudes, and they killed all of them. So I think that's incredibly helpful. Hamas has recruited almost as many new members as they lost. Even if that's true, it's still really good for Israel. These are going to be brand new people who knows how effective they'll be. They won't have any training. They won't have had any coordination. I mean, it's bad. I mean, I guess it's not good, but I wonder how they even know this. Oh, Yahya Sinwar's younger brother is apparently in Gaza too. Nice. How do you think the insurgency math will work out? Hamas is done. Something will take its place. Personally, I feel like any deal that leaves Hamas in charge is just an utter and total failure. But if I was Netanyahu, I don't even know all the things at play right now. Hamas being in charge of the Gaza Strip is bad for everybody. It's bad for, well, it depends actually on what your interests are, I guess. Hamas in the Gaza Strip allows Israel to maintain a really aggressive position towards the Gaza Strip. So things like the blockade or blocking travel in and out can still somewhat be justified by Hamas being there. And it still keeps a division between the Palestinians because you've got 2 groups of Palestinians now. The Gaza Strip Palestinians led by Hamas and the West Bank Palestinians led by the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, or the PLO. It's the same thing kind of. If the Palestinian Authority is given control over the Gaza Strip, which I feel like they should be, or Hamas can be rolled into the Palestinian Authority or rolled into the PLO, which I don't know. I haven't seen statements from any PLO person. I don't know if that would even be possible. Then that would be a step in the right direction, but it would also maybe go towards unity between the Palestinians. I don't know how Netanyahu feels about that. I don't know how the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian Liberation Organization, I don't know how the PLO feels about that. I have no idea. I don't know if Mahmoud Abbas has made any statements about any of this or what his plans are. Look at this guy. This guy is 90 years old. I feel like he looks and functions really well for being so fucking old. What the fuck? The prime minister said the Palestinian Authority would take over Gaza. Ooh, can you link me that? Did Mohammed Daif actually die? I remember it was just a rumor. Who did we see the dead pictures of? Was it him or was it Sinwar? Who was the guy who was on the ground? He was dead. That was Sinwar. I don't remember if Daif died in Syria or not. In an embassy or some shit. Maybe he was. I don't remember. It's an article saying Hamas now accepts Israel killed Mohammed Daif, has arrested 2 people. Sources tell paper. Nobody insists. I feel like that's a different thing than saying that it's happened. Palestinian Prime Minister Mustafa insists any plan to separate Gaza will be rejected. Oh my god. Wait, hold on. Wait, how much of this shit did I miss? The fuck? Stop! Is the Prime Minister of the PA different than the... is it different than the Prime Minister of the PLO? The way that they structure this government is so fucking annoying. Okay, I'm guessing it is. Yeah, okay. No, Abbas is the president, Mustafa is the prime minister. Sure, but I think Abbas is also the prime minister of the PLO, though, right? Or no, it's not prime minister. I'm sorry, it's chairman. They have chairman. Why does everybody have a different name for the top of their organizations? Okay. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa firmly stated on Wednesday that it is unacceptable for any entity other than the Palestinian Authority to govern the Gaza Strip in the future. I agree with this. I think it would be stupid if they weren't, but I don't know what will actually happen. Okay. What is this? You can take the girl out of the Waffle House, but you can't take Waffle House out of the girl.
I can see that somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or not.
Do not call me a child. I am no child.
I
Don't even
find
start.
out.
I will not do that. I am not a child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is
What?
not in order.
Those men are like, get me out of here.
I know, seriously. Every time I watch Jasmine Crockett speak, I feel like she's testifying on a show called The Stupid People's Court. It's so hard to watch. And yes, she always goes to that other insult with Nancy Mace or anybody who dares counter some of her limited thought process. But good on Nancy Mace for stepping up for herself here. And lest we forget, Nancy Mace was a Waffle House waitress, so she ain't taking nothing from anybody. Like, if we really wanted to secure the border, you send the women who police Waffle House at 2 in the morning down there. Tom Holman could take the rest of the year off. We'd be fine.
Absolutely fucking epic. Okay. Oh, God. Can I handle watching this? Oh. Trump just ended the war in Israel.
This literally just happened an hour ago. Bro said this ceasefire is epic. Yes, he did. Okay, let's watch it.
This is a massive deal, weeks in the making, Alex.
It certainly is, if not longer, Pam. We have been waiting for more than 13 months.
I'm so sorry. Am I going to be nitpicky as fuck? Did he just say probably years? How nitpicky do I want to be here? Hold on.
It certainly is, if not longer, Pam.
Probably years.
We have been waiting.
Okay, so just to be clear, the current war has not lasted for years. So that is probably not possible unless there were time-traveling negotiators, but okay.
Waiting for more than 13 months since the last ceasefire deal, and since the last time there was an exchange of hostages and prisoners for this moment. It appears that this deal is imminent, if not done already. We're reporting that Hamas has agreed to the deal. There was certainly an expectation from the Israelis.
Also, there's no way this has been... what Biden said actually in his statement seemed to line up with what I looked up at in the Rafah thing, which makes me feel a little bit more like I know what I'm talking about. He said he laid out the precise contours of his plan on May 31st. My feeling is like there was no way that any peace was ever going to happen until Israel had at least done a full sweep from the top to the bottom of the Gaza Strip. And the final city on the south that needed to be invaded or fought over was Rafah. And it looked like this happened in early May. So that timeline, I guess, lines up to me. But that makes sense, I guess.
Side that they would agree to a deal. All of this, of course, brokered after intensive negotiations with the mediators, the United States, Qatar, and Egypt. So this is obviously extremely welcome news after...
This is great. I mean, this is actually such a good thing. I think people have wanted... I mean, like, really, this is amazing. I mean, whether it was Biden or Trump or whoever, this is a great thing.
Some 14 months of fighting. And what we expect to happen, if indeed this deal goes into effect, is that over the course of some 6 weeks, we would see more than 30 Israeli hostages released by Hamas and other groups who are holding them in Gaza.
Trump 100%. How is it Trump logically? I don't know. So I don't really know if this is true or not because I don't have enough information about it. But the people that are probably going to say that it's because of Trump would probably use the example. I think that there were hostages with Jimmy Carter. And then when Reagan won the election, the hostages were immediately returned. So people are probably going to liken the situation to the time with Reagan and Jimmy Carter. And I think that they're going to think that...
Which probably wouldn't be good because I think that the... I need to do research on this. I think I have this in my notes. Someday we will. That Reagan's... transition team or Reagan's negotiators, whatever, were probably up to no good negotiating that behind the scenes so that as soon as Reagan stepped into office, it would undermine Carter a ton.
Basically, Trump is going to come in there and they're worried about just getting completely carpet bombed and just getting annihilated because I think that there's a good chance Trump would probably do that. So that's Like, I mean, is that the reason why this happened? It's impossible to know that. But I do think that the people that are, like leading Hamas, I do think that they're worried about that. Absolutely.
The people that are leading Hamas are all dead. I don't think anybody's worried about a carpet bombing scenario. I think we're way past any. I don't even know what the fuck is left of Hamas in the Gaza Strip that could be carpet bombed. But
I mean, like, I would be fucking, like, if you were Hamas, wouldn't you be fucking terrified of that? Like, yeah, I would be, absolutely.
Like, Israel already has all the capacity, all the capability to do anything the U.S. could do. I mean, like, I don't know what I don't know what the extra fear would be here, but.
I think we have the exact number of Palestinian prisoners who would be released by Israel, and then there are a bunch of other different elements that would go into effect. Palestinians would be allowed to go home in the Gaza Strip. More humanitarian aid would get to go in. But I think that the point here, Pam, is that after weeks of feverish work on the U.S. side with both Biden administration officials and officials from the incoming Trump team working in coordination with each other, they and the other mediators have managed to get the Israelis and Hamas, it appears, across the finish line where we are going to get a truce, a pause in this fighting. One thing I really want to emphasize is this does not mean the end of this war. This means a break in this war. Hopefully,
yeah, I think that everybody knows that.
This break will last at least 6 weeks, if not longer. Hopefully, all
Jesus Christ, how fucking bleak. Hopefully this break in the war lasts for at least 6 weeks. It's like 2 months. Oh my God.
People will come home who are.
Why is it that when Asmongold was asked to speculate about why people would give Trump credit for it, why didn't he speculate on why people would give Biden credit for it?
Supposed to come home, but there are big questions about what would happen after this first phase of a ceasefire, which, as it stands now, and this plan has been in place for quite some time since President Biden laid it out in May, this is expected to.
Especially after Pete Hegseth said in his confirmation that he wants to kill every member of Hamas. Yeah, I mean, like, it's impossible to know whether that was a factor, and I think that it's unfair to say that it definitely was. But I would tell you this: that if I was in charge of Hamas and I saw these two crazy fucks that are about to be in charge, and they have nuclear weapons and like fucking, faster than the speed of sound jets and infinite bombs that are saying that we're going to kill every.
So Israel has nuclear weapons and faster than sound jets, and they have lots of bombs. But okay.
Every single one of you, I would be more willing to negotiate. I absolutely would.
Last around 6 weeks. So we're still waiting for final word, I believe, from all of the parties, but this certainly seems imminent, if not a done deal already.
I want to go back to MJ Lee at the White House. I believe we're reconnected. MJ, what can you tell us about this plan?
Well, Pam, according to a senior administration official telling CNN, it is done, it is confirmed, meaning that Hamas has given that final green light, agreeing to the ceasefire and hostages release deal that had been on the table for a while. And based on all of our reporting, we knew that this really was the final step that all of the parties were waiting for, that it really came down to this group agreeing to the parameters that everybody else had agreed to. Part of the reason we have been so cautious in our reporting all of this time is precisely that, that in the end, it came down to Hamas giving this final green light. And when we have spoken to at least U.S. officials involved in these discussions and with knowledge of the situation, they always pointed to the fact that it was impossible to make any kind of predictions with certainty because at the end of the day, they were dealing with Hamas. But again, here we have a confirmation from a senior administration official that Hamas has finally given the green light and there is a deal for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the hostages to be released. This is a deal, as you were talking about just now with Alex, that has been elusive for the Biden administration and for the U.S. for so many months. You know, we had that initial ceasefire back more than a year ago, around Thanksgiving, 2 Thanksgivings ago, when a number of hostages came out. That ceasefire ended up being temporary, only lasting a number of days.
15 months.
And really since then, U.S. officials have been working to get a second
5 days before the 20th. Well, somebody said in chat, the innocent fears the cruel and the cruel fears the madman. Yeah, I mean, like, in my opinion, I'll say it, I think Trump's a fucking psychopath. I do. I think that he would bomb them and he would not give a fuck about how many innocent people got killed or anything. He would legitimately fucking kill all of them.
Just to be clear, no other world leader thinks this or acts like this. This doesn't influence the actions of literally anybody else. The Taliban was still killing American soldiers in Afghanistan. Russia was still instigating conflict and fighting on the ground in Ukraine. Syria, Assad was still using chemical weapon attacks on his citizens. Turkey was still at war with Kurdish people in Turkey and in northern Syria, like literally nobody around the world. This is just a delusion created by Americans and for Americans in order to propagate this weird image of this God Emperor Trump that supposedly the rest of the world is scared of. But nobody navigates any international relationship. Like nobody actually thinks that Trump is going to do anything like this. Nobody, like, there's no evidence for any of that. But
I think that's what he would do. And I think that they're worried, and I think they know that. And also, it's probably not a guarantee, but it's like, would you want to take the risk of that? Ooh, I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all. It's an intellectually dishonest statement. Really? I mean, okay. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, if I were them, that's how I would look at it. Yeah. I mean, really, like that's how I would look at it. I mean, I'm not sure. Like maybe it wouldn't happen that way. Maybe that's not how they see it, but that's just how I'd see it.
The ceasefire in place, but it had been so challenging. There were so many moments throughout the last year plus where we reported that things looked like they were maybe getting close, that we had reason for optimism based on our sources and our reporting. But even in these final days, everybody we had talked to were so careful to almost not get their hopes up too much. I think we should.
Yeah, somebody said too, hasn't he already promised to bomb them if they're not free by the time that he takes office? He has. Yep. That is exactly what.
Yeah, also promised that he would lower the budget deficit and cut the debt and do a million other things that he's failed to deliver on. In his last term, he came in, I don't know, do I even need to run through every fucking thing again? to defund and repeal and replace the ACA, get an infrastructure bill passed. Or, I mean, like
what it was. And yeah, 5 days before it takes office.
And a good deal amount of time talking about Donald Trump and the incoming president's desire to get this done that had been really so decisive in the end in helping to get this across the finish line.
Certainly. And just for our viewers, just to remind you, in terms of the numbers, Hamas and its allies hold 94 people taken from Israel on October 7th, 2023. The majority are civilians. 34 are confirmed dead, but the number is almost certainly higher than that. 81 are men and 13 women, and there are 2 under the age of 5.
And it was not Hamas, but Israel who was forced to capitulate by Trump. I mean, good. Like, I mean, yeah, I think that, yeah, good.
Of course, there's going to be phases, as Alex had laid out.
Yeah, good either way. Doesn't matter. Like, either way, it's good no matter.
I'm really curious what the details are of that phase 2 and phase 3.
During the expected ceasefire. I want to go straight to Jeremy Diamond, who is on the ground there in Israel, to get the Israel part of this, because there's a process in Israel, right? Jeremy, walk us through that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Pam. And first of all, I think it's important to note that for the last 2 days, the Israeli government officials who I've been speaking with have been saying this is in Hamas's hands. We need Hamas to say yes in order to get to a deal. And that is indeed what has now happened. And so for all intents and purposes, we do indeed now have an agreement between these parties to go into a ceasefire that is expected to last 6 weeks, during which you will see 33 Israeli hostages released, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli jails in exchange the much needed entry of...
That's good. Yeah, because a lot of people don't know this, but apparently Israel had a lot of Palestinian hostages as well. I didn't even know that. Intense and yeah.
Humanitarian aid, but the process that now needs to happen here in Israel in order for this deal to actually become a reality. This agreement will now go from the Israeli Prime Minister. He will take this agreement before his
Did he call them hostages?
Palestinian hostages as well. I didn't even know that.
That's not prisoners of war, are not considered hostages, but okay.
Intense and yeah.
But humanitarian aid, but the process that now needs to happen here in Israel in order for this deal to actually become a reality. This agreement will now go from the Israeli Prime Minister. He will take this agreement before his security cabinet, which is a smaller group of his governing coalition, some of his top ministers primarily involved in security affairs. They will then give an up or down vote on this. If it is approved, it will then go to the full cabinet for approval, and only then will the Israeli government be able to officially sign off on this deal and begin marching towards implementation. There is one additional hurdle before implementation, and that is giving the individuals who were impacted by those Palestinian prisoners who will be released the opportunity to petition the Supreme Court against their release. That is largely a formality. The Israeli government has enormous sign off on this deal and begin marching towards implementation. There is one.
What's the functional difference between prisoners of war and hostages? Just curious, having a hard time finding one myself. Fuck, I should know this. So, like, a hostage, I think, is somebody that you have that you've captured. There's a whole bunch of rules for how to treat prisoners of war. I think a hostage might necessarily be, well, because you can capture hostages during war. Somebody that you take like outside of wartime is always considered a hostage, though. I'm almost positive of that. So, for instance, let's say that like Mexico and the United States, let's say Mexico sends soldiers in, and let's say they capture U.S. soldiers and then take them back to Mexico, assuming that we weren't in war yet. Even if it was soldiers capturing soldiers, I think those would still be considered hostages. There's also rules for, I don't think you're allowed to negotiate prisoner releases in exchange for other military concessions. I think that's considered like hostage taking as well, to some extent, I think. Like I can do like a prisoner for prisoner swap, but I can't say like, if you stop bombing this or if you bomb this or whatever, or we're going to bomb this unless you release our prisoners. I don't think you're allowed to do that. But let me, we can check real quick. Prisoner versus hostage IHL. That's my guess. What the fuck? Why the fuck is this in? Okay. Is there like a language thing on this page somewhere that I'm missing? Okay, whatever. Any person who seizes or detains and threatens to kill, to injure, or to continue to detain another person, herein referred to as a hostage in order to compel a third party, namely a state, an international intergovernmental organization, a natural or juridical person, or a group of persons to do or to abstain from doing any act as an explicit or implicit condition for the release of the hostage commits the offense of taking of hostages. Okay, I don't know if I'll give a strict definition of hostage taking, but basically what I said, I think. You can't capture people for leverage, not soldiers or anything else.
Additional hurdle before implementation, and that is giving the individuals who were impacted by those Palestinian prisoners who will be released the opportunity to petition the Supreme Court against their release. That is largely a formality. The Israeli government has enormous leverage, and the Prime Minister in particular has enormous freedom to release those prisoners as it relates to security matters. So that will likely be a 24-hour period that will go by, and that likely takes us most likely to Sunday, which is what I've been told is the most likely date when this deal will actually be implemented on the ground. That will mean that we will see the first Israeli hostages in more than a year be released as part of...
Does international law have teeth? It seems like it is just used as moral footing to stand on. It's like used in conjunction with other like agreements or arrangements or clauses for war or whatnot.
A diplomatic agreement here for these hostages
the
to come out of Gaza. You will see the release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. And in addition to that, of course, you will see Israeli jets, Israeli troops on the ground lower their weapons. And for the first time in over a year, you will finally see the guns be silenced here, and the people of Gaza will finally get a much-needed reprieve from the military assault that they have been undergoing over the last year.
All right, thank you so much, Jeremy. I want to go to CNN Foreign Policy reporter Barak Ravid. What can you tell us about this deal and when the Hamas prisoners will be released, those held hostage, I should say, and the Palestinian prisoners as well? What more can you tell us about that?
So I think one of the most important things that our viewers need to know right now is that there are 7 Americans held by Hamas in Gaza. 2 of them are expected to be released in this initial phase of the hostage deal. One of them is U.S. citizen Keith Siegel. That a video of him from captivity was aired a few months ago.
Oh, boy.
He is in the list for this first phase. Another U.S. citizen is Sagida Kelchen, another U.S. citizen who is on the list of the 33 hostages expected to be released in this initial phase. And I think what is very interesting is that this deal has been in the making for months, since President Biden laid out his plan, his proposal last May, and U.S. negotiators, Qatari negotiators, Egyptian negotiators, Israeli negotiators have been working on this for months. I think the breakthrough came when the deal with Hezbollah on the ceasefire in Lebanon happened. Because then Hamas in Gaza understood that it has been left alone and that no one's coming to save them. And since then, what I hear from Israeli news officials is since then, they saw a change in how Hamas is negotiating this deal. And this is how we got to this point.
Well, there it is. I think this is great. That's great. I mean, people are getting killed by this constantly. Hopefully it lasts as long as possible. Yeah, this legitimately, it's tragic this does not happen sooner. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm just glad that it's happening now. Thank God, right? I mean, like, really. And, man, literally the same hostage deal, lying cons. I'm not sure. I bet Trump wants all the credit for it. I think that it's because of Trump or not, based off of whether you like him or not. I don't think that you can really define whether it was him that did it or not. I really don't think so. Like, it's not like there's going to be a way that Hamas is going to say with absolute honesty everything that went into making this decision. So this is going to be one of those situations where if you like Trump, this ceasefire happened because of Trump, and if you don't like Trump, this ceasefire happened luckily before Trump took office. So that's the way that I think that a lot of people are going to read this, and I think that they're going to make comparisons with the Jimmy Carter, Reagan thing. With the
why would he title the video "Trump just ended the war in Israel"? Then, oof, he's getting just kidding. Never mind. I love you, YouTube editors.
The hostages back. I think they were in Iran back then, in like the 1980s or 1981, something like that, right? And so that's kind of what I'm expecting is going to happen.
His wasn't too bad, I guess. What he said could have been worse, but the trouble with Elon. Real quick, a Sammy Harris article. I didn't set out to become an enemy of the world's richest man, but I seem to have managed it all the same. Until this moment, I resisted describing my falling out with Elon Musk in much detail, but as the man's cultural influence has metastasized, and he continues to spread lies about me on the social media platform that he owns, Twitter/X, it seems only appropriate to set the record straight. I know that it annoys many of my audience as me defend myself against attacks that they recognize to be spurious, but they might nevertheless find the details of what happened with Elon interesting. Of all the remarkable people I've met, Elon is probably the most likely to remain a world historical figure, despite his best efforts to become a clown. He is also most likely to squander his ample opportunities to live a happy life, ruin his reputation and most important relationships, and produce lasting harm across the globe. None of this was obvious to me when we first met, and I have been quite amazed at Elon's evolution, both as a man and as an avatar of chaos. The friend I remember did not seem to hunger for public attention, but his engagement with Twitter and X transformed him to a degree seldom seen outside of Marvel movies or Greek mythology. If Elon is still the man I knew, I can only conclude that I never really knew him. When we first met, Elon wasn't especially rich or famous. In fact, I recall him teetering on the brink of bankruptcy around 2008 while risking the last of his previous fortune to make payroll at Tesla. At the time, he was living off loans from his friends Larry and Sergey. Once Elon became truly famous and his personal wealth achieved escape velocity, I was among the first friends he called to discuss his growing security concerns. I put him in touch with Gavin de Becker, who provided his first bodyguards and recommended other changes to his life. We also went shooting on at least 2 occasions with Scott Reitz, the finest firearm instructor I've ever met. It is an ugly irony that Elon's repeated targeting of me on Twitter and X has increased my own security concerns. He understands this, of course, but does not seem to care. So how did we fall out? Let this be a cautionary tale for any of Elon's friends who might be tempted to tell the greatest man or to tell the great man something he doesn't want to hear. 1. When the SARS-CoV-2 virus first invaded our lives in March of 2020, Elon began tweeting in ways that I feared would harm his reputation. I also worried that his tweets might exacerbate the coming public health emergency. Italy had already fallen off of a cliff, and Elon shared the following opinion with his tens of millions of fans. The coronavirus panic is dumb. On March 6th. Damn. As a concerned friend, I sent him a private text. Oh, Jesus. Holy shit. How long has Sam Harris been off of X? It's been like 2 years, right? From Elon Musk mentioning Sam Harris. Sam Harris is mentally ill. Sam Harris is mentally ill. Sam Harris is another idiot. Sam Harris has gone flat out insane. It's tragic. Sam Harris is just actually not that smart. I literally have zero interest in Russia, Tesla, blah, blah, blah. Sam Harris is a pompous hypocrite. Sam lost me when he said that any lies at all would justify Trump losing. I mean, Sam literally wrote a book on why lying is evil. Sam Harris is a subtard. Read Lying, the new book. Oh, and then this goes back to 2011. So this is just recently, I guess. Or these are all 2024 November. Hey, brother, I really think you need to walk back your coronavirus tweet. I know there's a way to parse it that makes sense. Panic is always dumb. But I fear that's not the way most people are reading it. You have an enormous platform, and much of the world looks to you as an authority on all things technical. Coronavirus is a very big deal, and if we don't get our act together, we're going to look just like Italy very soon. If you want to turn some engineers loose on the problem, now would be a good time for a breakthrough in the production of ventilators. Elon's response was, I believe, the first discordant note ever struck in our friendship. Sam, you of all people should not be concerned about this. Okay. He included a link to a page on the CDC website indicating that COVID was not even among the top 100 causes of death in the U.S. This was a patently silly point to make in the first days of a pandemic. We continued exchanging texts for at least 2 hours. If I hadn't known that I was communicating with Elon Musk, I would have thought I was debating someone who lacked any understanding of basic scientific and mathematical concepts like exponential curves. Elon and I didn't converge on a common view of epidemiology over the course of those 2 hours, but we hit upon a fun compromise. A wager. Elon bet me $1 million to be given to charity against a bottle of fancy tequila, $1,000, that we wouldn't see as many as 35,000 cases of COVID in the United States. Cases, not deaths.